On est un peu âgés, donc on va prendre le temps. You need to wait for us to get it together.
That's fine. Take your time. Parfait.
Ok, premièrement, on veut remercier beaucoup la Fondation Aubin pour vous nous avons invité à cet hommage à Madeleine Parent, qui est vraiment une héroïne pour beaucoup de personnes parmi tout le Canada. Et donc, on a fait un petit hommage à Madeleine.
Madeleine's leadership gave unions lots of drive. She encouraged the poor to organize, taught them to survive. She pushed for recognition for women who had to work. She knew how to ensure their rights and fight to get their perks. Merci, merci, Madeleine. Toutes les femmes se souviennent de tes exploits et ton courage. Pour cela, nous te rendons hommage. She'll go down in history for changes she made. She calmly challenged authority. She was never ever phased. She spoke out in English and she spoke out en français for improved working conditions and for women equal pay. She was a labor leader who was known across the land. She knew how to build bridges and hold out a helping hand. Outspoken and determined, she marched in picket lines, a pacifist, a feminist, well ahead of her time. Merci, merci, Madeleine. Les émigrants se souviennent et exaltent de louange pour la justice et l'équité que tu leur as donnée.
The next one, Madeleine, as you know, worked so hard for textile workers. Et donc, le prochain est, on demande une question.
How much did you pay for that new sweater? The one that you bought at the bay. If it came from a sweatshop in Malaysia, the sewer got very little pay. The workers in many third world countries must put in a 12-hour day. If they try to form a union, they are fired. Raging grannies say that's not okay. Now, retailers, top administrators to question the source when they buy. If they don't, they must bear the burden of the human rights that they deny.
Grande féministe avant son temps, on a un son spécial.
Elle s'appelle Women Shoulder Half the Burden. Okay. Women shoulder half the burden, hold up half the sky. Yeah, our voices have been muted, makes you wonder why. Can't you hear the voice of women calling you and me? A peaceful world is one of justice, love, the golden key. Women working, women sighing, trying to survive. Now we hear the earth is dying, must keep her alive. Can't you hear the voice of women calling you and me? A peaceful world is one of justice, love, the golden key.
Madeleine is very happy to hear that.
She was singing with them.
Yes, right. We were all singing. And for women's rights, I tell you, we have quite a few women here. I think we're majority, so we power to the women. No, equity, social justice for everyone is what we all are for. We have a little modification to the program. Before we show the interviews in the film, we'll have 3 testimonies because we started late, so we have a few people who have to leave. So I will first welcome Sujata, Dave, and after that we'll have Cinthia, Kelly, and then Ville Déchaînées before we show the movie. Sujata?
Merci beaucoup. I'm going to speak in French because I do that these days. Merci pour cette opportunité magnifique, cette 1er mai, le fête des travailleurs, et aussi le début de notre... Est-ce que je vais juste ajuster le microphone? Ok. Aussi le début de notre printemps d'érable. Je n'avais pas l'opportunité de participer dans les manifs, malheureusement, mais je regarde la révolution passer de ma fenêtre de temps en temps. D'abord, il y a la légende de Madeleine Parent. C'est l'année 1981. Les femmes viennent d'avoir le droit de voter. C'est l'ère de Duplessis, la lutte anticommuniste, la grande noirceur, et une femme petite, mince, jolie, un peu de McGill. Elle ose croire elle a le droit d'avoir un droit. Et elle ose croire aussi que les travailleurs ont aussi les droits. Pour qui elle se prend? Who does she think she is? Comment elle pourrait croire qu'elle pourrait réussir? Il n'y a aucun signe d'espoir. Ce n'est pas comme c'était l'année 70. Les droits démocratiques ne sont pas nécessairement respectés, mais elle pensait. Elle organise les travailleurs et 6 000 personnes plus tard, et 6 arrestations plus tard, elle est la voix incontournable de ceux et celles qui n'ont pas une voix. C'est comme aujourd'hui, il y avait la lutte. La police provinciale avec les mitraillettes et le gaz lacrymogène, les travailleurs avec les roches. Ça rappelle de qu'est-ce que se passe maintenant. Et ce n'était pas une cause glamour, ce sont des simples travailleurs dans les usines, les mauvais types, les immigrants. Et c'est cet aspect qui m'a toujours touché de Madeleine Parent, parce que pour Madeleine Parent, c'était jamais avec les causes facile où elle cherche d'être la vedette. C'était l'inverse. Elle utilisait son autorité pour ouvrir les portes aux autres. Je me souviens, c'était au milieu des années 90, c'était la reine de Mike Harris, la Common Sense Revolution. On est fasciné par la dette. il y avait le programme de transfert social de fédéral de couper les transferts aux provinces. Et il y a des étudiants qui arrivent aux consultations. Ils renversent les tables, littéralement, comme les tables tombent devant les ministres. Et dans le clip, Madeleine Parent, elle les appuie. À cet âge, elle est un grand moment, une femme posée, élégante, à l'âge d'être plus sage comme le Raging Grannies, et conservateur ou conservatrice, mais non, elle est devant. Même chose pour les travailleurs immigrants, elle faisait toujours le lien entre les syndicats. Et pour Madeleine Parent, elle lance des défis toujours au mouvement syndical, de diversifier, de démocratiser. Naturellement, dans son temps, ce n'était pas en vogue de travailler avec les immigrants. Mais Madeleine Parent, c'était depuis des décennies qu'elle travaille avec des immigrants. Et ce n'était pas pour des banalités comme oh, on va s'entendre, on va travailler ensemble, des choses comme ça, ou c'est la valeur ajoutée. Elle était vraiment là pour changer le monde. Elle écoute les groupes, leurs problématiques. Elle travaille avec le centre communautaire des femmes sud-asiatiques, les femmes autochtones. Personnellement, j'ai rencontré Madeleine Parent la première fois quand j'étais au congrès le premier congrès de la Fédération des femmes de Québec. J'étais juste fébrile d'être là. J'étais un anglophone, encore d'apprendre la langue. Pour moi, le FFQ était comme quelque chose de mythe. C'était la marche des paniers roses, la marche mondiale des femmes. Et j'ai posé une question. Et il y avait une petite controverse, mais après Madeleine Parent m'a approché et elle m'a dit « C'est très important ce que tu viens de dire ». Et moi, je me sentais compris et que mes commentaires, c'était pas nouvel pour elle, qu'elle a reconnu l'importance de chacun. C'était pas que oh, cette personne-là était importante, cette personne non. Vraiment, elle est là pour que chacun de nous puisse construire le bien commun. Pour moi, comme femme, comme minorité, comme militante, comme féministe, Madeleine Parent a ouvert des portes pour moi. Mais pas juste pour moi, pour nous. Pour les étudiants qui manifestent maintenant, pour les travailleurs des alias, pour tous ceux et celles qui veulent une société plus juste et plus inclusive. Merci, Madeleine.
Merci beaucoup, votre témoignage nous inspire aussi et merci beaucoup. J'inviterai Cinthia. C'est vraiment très touchant pour nous, très privilégié d'avoir des gens qui ont connu Madeleine. Merci beaucoup, Cinthia Kelly.
Bonjour. Si aujourd'hui je m'exprime dans la langue de Stanley Ryerson, c'est parce qu'après 3 jours, 4 jours d'écriture, de rédaction et de larmes, je pensais mieux me maîtriser en anglais. Alors j'espère que vous allez me pardonner cette indulgence. Tout est en anglais dans mon discours. My name is Cinthia Kelly. Je m'appelle Cinthia Kelly. I added it up the other day, and it seems that I was Madeleine's friend and neighbor for nearly 20 years. I'm still in mourning for Madeleine. I loved her very much. We met in the pro-choice movement, and I joined her in supporting many other causes thereafter. Madeleine introduced me to the most interesting, caring people, the most brilliant people I could have imagined meeting, including my future husband, who's here with us today. This evening, though, I will mainly talk about my involvement with Madeleine in the pro-choice movement, and some experiences with her in later years, since I'm pretty sure that nobody will be covering those topics. I met Madeleine when abortion was still a crime in this country. She was entering her golden years then, about 68 years old and in top gear. participating in every possible progressive movement imaginable at a time in life when many would have started slowing things down. I was a young student, part of a pro-choice group of women at UQAM, who went on to take over the coordinating committee of la Coalition Québécoise pour le droit à l'avortement libre et gratuit, the Quebec Coalition for Free and Accessible Abortion. I can still remember celebrating with her and the other women after the Supreme Court's Morgentaler judgment struck down the abortion law in 1988. But access to abortion then, as now, remained limited for many women across Canada. So, being her neighbor, Madeleine called me into action. She asked me to host women who came from the maritime provinces to get abortions and who could not afford to pay for accommodations. It's striking to me to contemplate that when a woman turned to a social worker in PEI, Nova Scotia, or New Brunswick, somehow that social worker was eventually referred to Madeleine Parent, who would inevitably know someone who could help her find her way. That's just how connected and involved Madeleine Parent was across this country. In hosting low-income women in need of abortions, I met a whole range of women who needed this service, this medical service, for a wide spectrum of reasons. A great many young women from all walks of life who had little or no access to the services in their hometown came either because there was an then illegal therapeutic abortion committee set up, or because there was simply no service. Some were further along in their pregnancy than others. Some cried, some prayed, some burned sweetgrass or mourned. Some just came and went. Each time a pregnant woman was to come to stay with me, though, Madeleine took care to come by and discuss their case. She advised me on what to say and do. This was especially important, I remember, in the case of one girl, a 14-year-old who was pregnant for the second time by her father. I can still remember how scared and small she was when I met her at the bus station. Madeleine told me to tell her what to expect, and to make her know that this was her decision. If she changed her mind, that was okay. Whatever she wanted to do, I and many other women would make sure that it would happen. Madeleine was of the opinion that young women could relate best to the women who would come for abortions. But letting her know that is, letting the young woman who came know that she was not alone, was the main thing, she said, and that's so true of us all. The first time I met Madeleine was also the first time I met Leah Roback, and so my early memories of Madeleine are all wrapped up in the happy memories of Leah as well. They formed an incredibly dynamic duo together, and they let all the young women they met know that they were not alone either. As some of you may know, Madeleine and Leah always insisted on taking public transit. And taking the bus with Madeleine and Leah was an adventure every time. Not because they were frail old ladies, far from it. In fact, with all the walking they put in over a lifetime, those women were solid on their feet well into their 80s. It was just that Leah always made it a habit to strike up political conversations with complete strangers everywhere she went. Madeleine, while more demure, would join in once the discussion was underway and invite me and others to join in as well. And so it was that these two women could turn public transit into a university on wheels. I believe that it was through these constant conversations that both of them stayed current and resolutely more modern than the slightly younger women they were around most of the time. Madeleine and Leah took us very young women into their confidence immediately, as Sujatha was mentioning. They didn't hesitate. They taught us much about working carefully to make sure that alliances and coalitions were formed, that the language for motions and proposals was well articulated, and that the right people were called to be in the right place at the right time. All this typically occurred before any official meetings were held. And if you got a phone call from Madeleine Parent, you would likely hear her say, "I think it would be very important that you be at this meeting." And you surely found a way to show up post-haste. I'm sure some of you here have received those calls. I wish I had a day or two to tell you every story of how, together, Madeleine and Leah defended young, visible, and audible minority women. Although both Madeleine and Leah always remained masters of diplomacy and tact, when it came to defending every young woman's right to participate in the pro-choice or feminist movements, the gloves came off. They openly condemned the closed ranks of ageist, hierarchical, status-driven women whose generation could not seem to see the relève, la relève, right under their noses. Nothing frustrated them more. What struck me was that these women still called Madeleine and Leah allies after the fact. They always kept their connections going. It was a sight to behold them calling down red baiting and xenophobia, two things that poisoned the feminist movement in Quebec. At all times, they ardently defended our fundamental right to get out in the street and vote as well, vote with our feet. The seemingly always exhausted women whom they called les madames qui siègent had no business putting the kibosh on that. Madeleine was right behind me when I became the Anglophone spokesperson for the Coalition for the Right to Free and Accessible Abortion during the Chorales trials, which was no mean feat. She also continued to work with me to found a vital, active pro-choice collective at Concordia University. At one event that we organized, she told us about organizing women in the cotton mills of Valleyfield. She recalled how she would go door to door, visiting family after family to gain people's confidence. Back in those days, she told us, a good abortion was hard to come by, to say the least. Girls in trouble would go to certain doctors or midwives, but often they found they did not stop bleeding since they had to stand for such long periods of time in the cotton mills. Madeleine fought for them to keep their jobs and take sick days off to recover. Madeleine encouraged me in any professional endeavor I cared to undertake, and I appreciate that. There was no judgment. She encouraged me to take a job at the Canadian Centre on Racism and Prejudice, and she also fought hard against racism herself, well into her later years. One of the most striking examples of this was at age 89, when she had a fractured pelvis. Still confined to her home, she arranged to invite Pauline Marois over to her apartment to have a chat with her about the Partie Québécoise proposed citizenship bill, which, among other things, would have called for new Quebecers to take a French test and other tests in order to be admitted to Quebec. Madeleine believed that this was a racist bill. She had briefly joined the PQ to support Pauline Marois, but was disappointed in her performance and her citizenship bill. That day, Madeleine took the time to set her straight on the kind of inclusive Quebec she had envisioned, and she did not mince words. I dare say it's a conversation that Pauline Marois will not soon forget, I'm sure. During the time I knew her, Madeleine successfully beat several serious lung infections and pneumonia. She beat cancer. She recovered from C. difficile 3 times. And each time she would recover, she did so with the discipline of an athlete. It's true that in her later years, one part of Madeleine's memory began to fail her. But I would hasten to point out that another part did not. She always recognized faces, and there was one other thing. At one time, a nurse came to see her to administer a memory test that would determine Madeleine's future care arrangements. Madeleine was a little tense, but seemed to get better as she went along. It became apparent in what she said, what she held to be most important. The nurse asked the standard questions. What day is it today? I'm not too sure, said Madeleine. Wednesday? Okay. And what is the name of the residence where you're living? Madeleine only got half the name. Where is the institution situated? In Montreal, said Madeleine. Where do you think we are? That's right, said the nurse. And where is Montreal? And what is Montreal, rather? Montreal's a city. Correct. And where is Montreal? In Quebec, said Madeleine. And what is Quebec? Well now, that depends on your point of view. Some think it should be a country, you know. But regardless, I think it's the social project that counts. What do you think? I think that says it all. Madeleine was all about the conversation. It's no surprise that Madeleine died in the arms of a union friend, nor that she had some good company discussing politics the afternoon of her death. She had so many friends. She had a whole team of very devoted friends who visit her regularly, and some of them are here among us. And when she was in residence, she beat all the records for visits, actually. This was not just the fruit of her celebrity, not at all. It was the result of cultivating and nurturing relationships with scores and scores of people. Madeleine was, above all, a humanist, a person who took the time in her all too short 93 years to help thousands of people. When people asked me whether Madeleine Parent had any children, I would always say, of course, thousands upon thousands of devoted daughters and sons. I'm deeply grateful to have known her, and so happy we're all here today to remember and honor her. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very personal. Thank you.